So back to numbers again, because when I had a gigameter, I went into the hospital and I detected like a lot of radiation in hospitals. I detected a lot of radiation in bananas. So when I read a report on New York Times, or just found it online that there is rain in New York with 0.03 microsieverts of radiation in the rain, and it's from Fukushima, and people are told to carry an umbrella or not go out. I mean, what does numbers mean, and what do these numbers
first,
mean?
it's important that microsieverts and sieverts, the unit, is a measure that tries to estimate the damage to a person from radiation. So it's designed to be how much injury radiation has caused you. So saying that there's a certain number of microsieverts in the rain isn't really appropriate, because rain isn't a human, rain isn't an animal, it can't be damaged by it. So we express the amount of radiation that's in a substance or in an area in becquerels. And then that has to be converted based on its energy and how much exposure you get into sieverts to estimate what kind of damage it's done to your body. That there could be a measurable amount of contamination in rain in New York City from Fukushima, I find very difficult to, it's very implausible. The contamination that's in the air, even last March, would only be detectable at that distance by the very most sensitive, careful scientific instruments. You would not be able to detect it from with an ordinary Geiger counter, with ordinary portable equipment. So if they're saying that there's some contamination in the rain as far away as the east coast of the United States, that is almost certainly from some other source. Either it's natural, from radon daughters coming out of the ground, or some other source. I can't believe that you'd be able to detect Fukushima fallout on the east coast of North America with ordinary portable equipment.
So in terms of numbers, like becquerels and microsieverts, like what does it really mean, or how, to a layman, like what kind of numbers should make sense to them?
Becquerels is an extraordinarily small unit. Okay, 1 becquerel means 1 disintegration per second, which means that's 1 atom. So when we talk about, say, the urinalysis that we had from the children in Fukushima, and one of the child, a 10-year-old girl, had something like 20 becquerels, or less than 20 becquerels, but let's say 20 becquerels of cesium in her urine per liter. Okay, that represents something in parts per billion of cesium. Okay, somewhere in the hundreds of parts per billion, maybe getting close to as low as 1 part per quadrillion. So it's a vanishingly small amount chemically. It's only that it's radioactive, and it's the radioactive the rays coming off it that make it harmful. It's hard to quantify those numbers. Sieverts, again, are a their number was chosen, the size of the sievert unit was chosen to be important, or to be useful to health physicists, so that 1 sievert is a dose. If you've got a whole sievert, you're guaranteed to be ill, you're guaranteed to be injured immediately. Okay, at 1/100th of that, where you're at 100 millisieverts, be 10, or at a millisievert, 1,000th of that, you're easily going to see, you could easily have effects, but they're not going to be immediate. The kind of units we're using here, microsieverts, these are things that we really don't know what the effects are going to be, and it takes a long time getting microsieverts per hour to build up a large enough dose to have a demonstrable effect. I don't think that there is any small amount that is safe to receive, but it's such a small amount that it's very difficult to tie an effect to any one person. We saw reports up in Fukushima early on of children with nosebleeds that wouldn't stop, people with vomiting, other kinds of illnesses which are very closely associated with acute radiation sickness. But the levels that they're being exposed to were thousands and tens of thousand times lower than that. The kinds of ill health effects we expect to see from this kind of exposure are the things that are going to take years or decades to manifest in the population. And at that time, we may see hundreds, thousands, maybe more extra cancers in that population. But it's not something we're going to be able to see in clinical numbers this year.
So in terms of, again, when you talk about measurements in Fukushima, is there like a comparable number, like in the air of Fukushima outside the exclusion zone? Mm-hmm. What kind of radiation are you measuring outside?
There's a very wide range of numbers even inside the exclusion zone. In the areas within, say, 50 kilometers, if you're southwest or south of the plant, like in Iwaki and Hirono, the numbers are quite much higher than they were before the incident, but they're, for instance, typical with what's natural in Hong Kong. If you go northwest of the plant in Iate and even Koriyama, no, then it's thousands of times higher. We're seeing 5, 10 becquerel or 10 microsieverts per hour just from contamination that's in the environment now.
So is this place in the exclusion zone or outside the exclusion zone?
The place that I'm thinking about, actually, the highest area that we've measured outside of the exclusion zone is on Route 399 in Iatemura, and it's 10 to 12 microsieverts an hour, and it is outside the exclusion zone, but it has been evacuated, and there's no one living there.
So at about 12 microsieverts per hour, what is that compared to actually being in a hospital or near an X-ray machine? Like,
well, that would be like getting 10 chest X-rays a day.
oh.
Okay, so that's a very serious amount. That's a kind of amount where anybody who lives there for even a brief period can really expect to have the statistics of their lifelong risk of cancer demonstrably affected. Now, you can't guarantee that they'll get cancer. You could put 10 people there and let them stay there for a year, and you could not guarantee those people would get cancer. But there's really no question that those kinds of radioactivity levels are going to have an effect on human health.
On like, if you live there in a long period of time, not like just passing through.
Oh, passing through, of course it's risky to a very small amount, but it's no more risky than taking a long airplane flight. Okay, people don't realize that on a high altitude airplane, at 30,000 feet, you're going to be getting 4 or 5 microsieverts per hour just sitting in an airplane. This past few months, we've had some of the highest solar activity, in 50 to 150 years. So at high altitudes in airplanes, we're seeing 8 microsieverts per hour in airplanes. So just taking an airplane flight, you're exposing yourself to higher radiation than you would get in normal life. Passing through an area like Koriyama or something is going to be comparable to that.